Hey everyone, welcome to week 10 of the college football season. My name is Mike Browning. I'm the host of the college football road trip at cfbroadtrip.com. I'm back home this week after a week and a half on the road, first going to Charlotte, followed by Wake Forest last weekend and a dominating win over Duke. That was a lot of fun to be at. In the meantime, this is probably the weakest week so far in the college football season as far as matchups. That I have really struggled in putting some games together to pick, but I was able to put together at least a couple of what I think are interesting matchups, even though they're not a lot of top ranked against top ranked teams. With that said, let's just go ahead and jump into this week's picks. We're going to start off with two of the military academies going against each other. We have Army traveling to Air Force. Army is always a tough team to play against. They have that triple option going on. They're able to put points on the board. They had 56 in a losing effort at Wake a couple weeks ago. Air Force has played pretty decently so far this year in the Mountain West. They're at the upper echelon of that conference, at least in their division. I think Air Force, because they have a more complete team, is going to be able to win this game. So I have Air Force winning at home over Army. Next, let's go to what is currently a Conference USA game that will be different in a couple years with all the Conference realignment going on. But we have Marshall traveling to Florida Atlantic. So Florida Atlantic is a team that I think I've underestimated. I saw them at Charlotte a couple weeks ago. I picked Charlotte to win that game. It was close in the first half, but then Florida Atlantic just blew them out in the second half. Their offense looked really impressive. I think because of that, they are going to be able to keep up the momentum. I'm not going to pick against them again this week. I have Florida Atlantic winning at home over Marshall in Conference USA play. Let's go to the Big Ten for our next matchup. We have Penn State traveling to Maryland. This is a matchup between two teams that have struggled quite a bit this season. Penn State is a team that everybody had up in their top 10 to 15 teams on the season. They've obviously fallen way out of the top 25 after their loss last week. Maryland's another team that looked pretty good, at least at the beginning of the season, but has struggled over the past few weeks. I think Maryland's struggles are going to continue this week. Penn State is going to look at this as a get-right game and pull out the win. I have Penn State winning on the road at Maryland in Big Ten play. Next, let's go to what I think might be one of the more intriguing matchups of this week that are under the radar. You have UTSA, Texas San Antonio, traveling to UTEP, Texas El Paso. So UTSA is still undefeated on the season. They're 8-0, although they're still not ranked. I think the playoff committee could have at least thrown them a bone and put them at 24 or 25 just to show a little bit of love, but they decided not to. UTEP is a team that everybody is surprised at after struggling so much over the past few seasons. They are 6-2 so far this year, although one of their losses was last week. I think that UTEP struggles will continue this week. I think they will have their second loss in a row because UTSA is just a really strong team. I have UTSA winning on the road at UTEP. Next, let's go to a Big 12 matchup. We have Texas traveling to Iowa State. Iowa State is a team that it looked like they were starting to put everything back together, but then they lost to West Virginia last week in a big upset. I think that loss not only hurts Iowa State, but it also hurts teams like Oklahoma and Baylor and Oklahoma State that want to be competitive in the Big 12 because that takes Iowa State out of the rankings and a powerful opponent out for those other teams. Texas, on the other hand, is a team that has struggled in the second half of games over the past few weeks, giving up fourth quarter leads in the last three matchups. I think that their struggles are going to continue this week. Iowa State wants to play for pride this week after their loss to West Virginia, and I think they'll win this game pretty handily, actually. I have Iowa State winning at home over Texas in Big 12 play. Next, let's go to an ACC matchup. We have number 9, Wake Forest, traveling to North Carolina. As I mentioned, I was able to see Wake Forest at home last week against Duke. I came away from that totally impressed with Wake Forest. Their offense was just unstoppable. 70 points against Army 2 weeks ago, 45 against Duke last week. Was a shutout through the first 3 quarters, giving up a meaningless touchdown in the fourth. Wake Forest, I think, is the real deal. The question is now with the pressure of being ranked in the top 10, will they struggle at all? They might down the road. They won't this week. North Carolina's just struggled too much. I have Wake Forest winning on the road in North Carolina in ACC play. Next, let's go to what could be an interesting matchup, at least for the coaching perspective. We have Liberty traveling to number 16, Ole Miss. Hugh Freeze versus Lane Kiffin in this matchup. This is going to be interesting just to see the X's and O's of what the teams do. And do they do trick plays? And how many fourth down conversions do these teams go for? Ole Miss is overall a stronger team. I think Ole Miss will win pretty easily. But this is just going to be a matchup that's going to be fun to watch. Ole Miss with the win at home over Liberty. Next, let's go to an SEC matchup. We have number 17, Mississippi State, traveling to Arkansas. Mississippi State is coming off a big win against Kentucky last week. This kind of moved Mississippi State up a little bit, obviously, in the rankings. Arkansas, after an amazing start to the season, has struggled over the past few weeks. Yes, they had a big win last week, but it was against Arkansas and Pine Bluff. That doesn't really mean anything. I think Mississippi State's starting to put things together under the Mike Leach offense. That will continue this week with a big win. And Mississippi State winning on the road at Arkansas in SEC play. Next, let's go to another Big Ten matchup. Third-rate Michigan State traveling to Purdue. Michigan State coming off the amazing win over Michigan last week. A game that went back and forth. It was a great game to watch. Purdue, on the other hand, had the huge win against Iowa a few weeks ago, who was ranked number 2 at the time, but has struggled and lost over the past couple weeks. Will Purdue be able to find the magic again? They will not. Iowa, I think, has shown that they're not as impressive as their number 2 ranking showed a few weeks ago. But on the other hand, Michigan State, big win over Michigan. Their momentum will continue in this one. Michigan State will win on the road at Purdue in Big Ten play. Now, let's go to the one ranked versus ranked matchup that's going on this week. It's happening in the SEC. You have number 13 Auburn traveling to number 14 Texas A&M. As I said, Auburn is that team that you never know what you're going to get out of them. They win games they shouldn't win. They lose games they shouldn't lose. Texas A&M has had a couple upsets earlier this season, but they started to put things around over the past couple of weeks, including with the big win over Alabama. I think A&M still has a lot to play for this season because they're the home team in this one. I'm going to give them the edge, and I have Texas A&M winning at home over Auburn in SEC play. So those are our matchups for this week. Again, not a lot of really strong matchups going on, but that also means that there's a chance for a lot of upsets going on. So go enjoy this week's games. I'll be writing about my Charlotte trip over the weekend, and we'll be able to post that up early next week. In the meantime, go and enjoy this week's games, and we'll talk to you again next week.